The Buffalo Bills may have done a deal with the devil yesterday when they're down 20-3 in Baltimore. I saw this game, and we're watching 9 at once. I don't know why there were 9 in the 1 o'clock window and only 3 in the late afternoon window yesterday, but that's not my department. It's not my issue. But there were 9 at 1 o'clock, and I've got the Brady Bunch configuration that NBC pipes down to the monitor that they put here that I can watch the games, and I see the score continuing to go the wrong way for the Bills, and I'm thinking they were broken last week by the Dolphins. Like one loss became 2. That's one of Simms' lines. Don't let one loss become 2. They had that game that they lost in Miami that they shouldn't have lost. Grossly outgained, grossly outpossessed, grossly outperformed the Dolphins and still lost the game. They just walked into a hornet's nest in Baltimore, and they find a way to turn it around and win the game. 20 unanswered points to come away with a 23-20 victory. And, Myles, I think this is what's important to the Bills. They were 0-7 in one-score games, starting with Week 1 last year. They need to show to themselves and everyone else that they can win a one-score game, that they can get off the mat, that they can find a way, if it's close late in the game, to emerge with a victory. 0-7 in one-score games, 14-1 in multiple-score games. So I think this helps the Bills because when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to be blowing people out. When you get to the playoffs, you're going to encounter adversity against good teams. When you get to the playoffs, you're going to have to find a way to reverse a day that doesn't feel like it's going your way. So I think the Bills may have learned some things about themselves and what they can do in that game yesterday that will help them as the season goes on, and most importantly, when the postseason arrives.
Yeah, when you get to the postseason, you need to close out games when you're up and there are only 13 seconds left, even when you are facing Patrick Mahomes. And I think you're right. I mean, it does sort of say something about the Buffalo Bills that even though they hadn't won those close games, we really thought highly of them. I mean, obviously we thought highly of them. Their quarterback is great. They have one of the best, for my money, the best receiver in football in Stephon Diggs. And so they have a great defense too. They added Von Miller to that rush. So there are a lot of things that are working in Buffalo's favor, but right, when you go down 20-3, even though the field conditions were god-awful yesterday because of Mother Nature, it makes you think, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? But the Bills were able to score, as you said, 20 unanswered points. They were able to get things done when they needed to. And the way they closed that game out was great because they did not allow the Ravens another chance to get back in the game. And when you're able to close out games like that, I think it says a lot about where you are as an offense and where you are in situational football. Situational football is so important, and it can be the difference between those close wins and those close losses. That's kind of what the problem was last year in the postseason when you only have 13 seconds and you still get allow the Chiefs to tie the game and send you into overtime, and then you lose that game. So maybe they're becoming better situationally, and I think that says something about Sean McDermott and the maturity that he's shown as a head coach and the maturity of that offensive unit as a whole. I'm glad we didn't see Ken Dorsey have another temper tantrum.
Well, no. Well, I wish we would have seen one, but I have a feeling the camera in his booth will never be activated again.
They had one outside the booth. They had one outside the booth yesterday. Just trained on it.
They'll cut the feed in the fourth quarter of a close game. But, here's the thing. When you are kicking the crap out of everybody like the Bills were last year, you don't get a lot of reps in situational football. And when you are losing one-score games, your reps in situational football aren't working. So it's important. I think it's one of the reasons why the Patriots had been so great for so many years. They weren't blowing people out, except 2007 when they didn't win a Super Bowl, when they finally got themselves in a tough situational football moment with the Giants. But you need those close games. You need to learn how to manage in a stressful moment where everything is riding on it. And that was something that the Ravens failed to do. And I'm looking at this drive they had that culminated in the fateful 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. They got the ball with 13:38 to go on their own 5. And that was after a Sam Martin punt put them 95 yards from pay dirt. 13:38 with 4:15 left. So they have the ball for over 9 minutes in a tie game. 4th and 2, and they decide to go for it. Here's John Harbaugh. Now, obviously, spoiler alert, it didn't work because it was 2020 and the final score was 23-20. But here's John Harbaugh talking about the decision, and I'm sure we'll show the play as to what happened on 4th and 2 when the Ravens opted to go for the touchdown instead of taking the field goal.
I felt like it gave us the best chance to win the game because 7, the worst that happens is if they go down the field and score, and I think we'll get them stopped. But if they go down the field and score a touchdown, the worst thing that can happen is that you're in overtime. But you kick a field goal there, now it's not a 3-down game anymore, it's a 4-down game. And you're putting them out there, you're putting your defense at a disadvantage because they've got 4 downs to convert all the way down the field. And a chance to, again, score 7, and then you lose the game on a touchdown. So then the worst thing, the other thing, you think you're going to get the ball at the 2-yard line. So I'm very confident in our defense's ability to stop them down there with the ball on the 2-yard line. So we got them backed up. If we don't get it, didn't turn out that way, unfortunately, and we lost the game. So hindsight, you could take the points. But if you look at it analytically, I understand why we did it.
Well, and here's the thing about the analytics when you talk about 4th and goal on the 2. Hey, if we don't get it, they got 98 yards to go, unless we throw an interception in the end zone, which is what they did. That's the wrinkle in the assessment. If you give the ball to the Bills on the 20 versus the 2, that changes everything, and that's got to be part of the analysis. I don't know how they construct these mathematical models. I assume every team has its own way of doing it, but one of the factors that has to go into that is the possibility that you're going to have either a fumble that's recovered in the end zone, a fumble that goes out of the end zone and automatically becomes a touchback and the defense in possession of the ball, the worst rule in football, or an interception like that one. So, you know, I've talked to smart coaches about this, and anyone that I talk to who's a coach is smarter than me. But
yeah,
the bottom line is it's not just the mathematics. It's what plays do we have at our disposal for this moment? What plays have we already used in the game in situations like this? Do we want to use another one of those that we've already used? Do we have others? How deep do we go on our list of plays we feel good about in this spot? And based upon everything we've seen today from this team, do we still feel as good about this play that we have locked and loaded for this situation? Or should we maybe not go with that play because they've fooled us in some way as to how they're defending us? There's so many factors that go into that, and that's where analytics meets the water's edge of real football. And again, analytics has a place. I don't need the analytics mafia on me on a Monday morning. I have not had coffee yet. But you can't just say it's not a video game. It's not a random outcome generator. When you are deciding to go for it in a spot like that, you have to have a play you feel good about based upon everything that you've seen from your offense and how it's executing that day, everything you've seen from the defense and how it's executing that day. Those are all factors. Hey, they're not stopping the run today. You know, well, we've got this play ready for a goal line situation where we're gonna run around and we're gonna pass it. Let's just run it up the middle. I mean, you have to. There's a flexibility, and this is all on the coach. Everything goes into this, and you make a decision like that unless you're Nathaniel Hackett. So those are. I'm sorry, Nathaniel. Catching strays.
Whoa.
As
Whoa.
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 He lost yesterday, but that's why. That's why I don't like taking analytics and turning it into some mathematical formula. It is a complicated study in human dynamics and human performance that is all the culmination of everything you've seen in the 56 minutes of the game that have been played to that point. That gets ignored. It's too easy to just do the knee-jerk, well, the analytics say you should go for it. It's far more complicated than that, Myles. That's my point.
Well, and I think Harbaugh explained that pretty well. And then he, at the end, said, if you look at it analytically, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that Harbaugh needs to justify any coaching decision that he makes based on what the numbers should be. He has enough experience and enough wins, and he's been with that team for so long that any coaching decision he makes, I feel like he can stand by it, and, you know, anything that anybody else says, be damned. It doesn't really matter. But I think the other thing he's talking about where he says, I feel like that was the best chance for us to win the game. 3 is more than 0. So if you are trying to force the Bills into whatever, 3 is more than 0. And when there's only 4 minutes left in the game, if you want to talk about trusting your defense, that's another element of it to me. So when we think about the old saying, well, if you pass, there are 3 things that can happen and 2 of them are bad. That's what ended up happening. One of the 2 bad things that can happen, either it's an incomplete pass or it's intercepted. The ball got intercepted. And at that point, I don't know if the Ravens should run a better play, if there was something better in their gotta have it list that they have when they go into a game or something. I don't know, but far be it for me to question whether or not they should have gone for it, especially when I'm talking about somebody who's as good of a head coach as Harbaugh. But yeah, he said hindsight, you take the points, but at the same time, I don't know, man, you're showing confidence in your team. They've gotten so many things on 4th down. I understand why he did it, and I don't need the numbers to explain that for me.
Well, and you made a good point in there. Not that the rest of it was bad, but the one thing that resonates to me, he maybe didn't really trust his defense to keep the Bills from driving down the field and scoring a touchdown because their defense had been so god-awful. And just 2 weeks earlier, they gave up a 21-point lead in the 4th quarter. The defense has been suspect this year. So let's get 7 and force them to match our 7 if they're going to extend the game into overtime. So I understand the thought process. I understand the analytics. But the caveat to the analytics is you may end up giving the other team the ball on the 20. And the real world reality is, how do you feel about your play? How do you feel about how it's going to be executed? How do you feel about what their defense is doing today? What in the first 56 minutes of the game may have changed whatever you were thinking going into the game? And then, MVP candidate Lamar Jackson making an ill-advised throw. And I think we are still allowed to point out the times Lamar Jackson makes a mistake. I know the Lamar Jackson hype train is at full speed right now, but that's kind of on him. He shouldn't have made that throw. He should not have made that throw. And I know that it's not like you can throw it away and kick the field goal after that because it was 4th down, but that's a very risky low percentage type of throw. I haven't seen the next gen stats on the completion percentage of that one, but it was probably closer to 0 than 100. And now you got a guy open, but it's just you're backpedaling and you waited a little while, and it was just enough time for Poyer to get over there and make the interception. Bigger picture, Myles, this was a showdown between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and I think the problem is the rain, the elements kind of took away from it. It wasn't perfect laboratory conditions to go out and have a quarterback duel. I don't draw any big conclusions about which guy's better right now. Lamar is still Lamar. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. They're 2 different guys. They're 2 of the best. Neither became noticeably better and neither became noticeably worse based upon just one game between the 2 of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Mike, I mean, you mentioned it, the elements are there. I never thought I would feel this way as somebody who grew up in Cleveland and, we take pride in the stadiums on the lake. You got to deal with the elements and the wind and it snows and it's this and it's that. I think the best way to watch football is in an environment like they have in Glendale, Arizona, or in Las Vegas. Controlled roof, and grass. It's beautiful that way. It's the way football is really meant to be played, where you can really see everything that a quarterback can do, everything that a defense wants to do. You're not worried about the slippage. You're not worried about fumbles and different things like that. I never really thought I would feel like this, but honestly, I think that's the best way to watch football because it shows us exactly what guys can do at their height of their powers, right? And I don't know. It's just one of those weird things. So yeah, obviously elements are always going to be a part of football. And I don't really think that they should take that away, but I wish that we could have seen that in an environment like Vegas or like they have in Arizona, where you can really see those 2 dudes at the peak of their powers. So I don't know. I don't know that we're ever going to really see that when it's Baltimore or it's Buffalo, but that I would love to see that game in those conditions.
That's another excellent point by you. Your brain works very well at 4:36 a.m. local time because
hey, that's why I'm here, man.
but I've got the perspective here because even though you were born in 1991, happy slightly belated birthday, by the way. The world did exist before then, and when I was a kid in the early 70s, like, football was boring then. It was still exciting, but compared to how it is today, it was boring. It was 3 yards and a cloud of dust up. It was a bunch of running and low-scoring games. So when you did introduce rain, mud, snow, it made it less boring. Now, when you've got a game that's premised on precision passing and speed and timing, the elements take away from the game. The elements enhanced the game in the 70s because it's like, all this running really sucks. How can we make it more interesting? Let's have them slipping all over the place. That'll make it more interesting. But no, now you don't want that. So you're right. I mean, grass field in a controlled environment where you can open a roof like you can in Glendale, that's the best way to do it. And and look, I know that, well, we saw John Harbaugh make the comments last week. They were actually made in the aftermath of the Week 1 game at MetLife Stadium where the Ravens beat the Jets. He lost a couple of guys for the season. He talked about how these games should all be played on grass, the best possible surfaces. Why aren't that? I mean, something I've been saying for years, why aren't you making the investment in having the best possible conditions for these players who are making tens of millions of dollars, some of them?
Yep.
But there's a lot of money that's invested in this. Even if you don't care about them as human beings, how do you not care about them as major investments of your money? And Harbaugh made that point. It's a player's game. We spent all this money. We want to take care of these guys. Why don't we have the best possible fields and best possible playing surfaces? So, look, it's hard to do it in a dome, especially when the dome's already been built and you don't have the apparatus to slide in a grass field. And I don't know that you can retrofit a dome stadium to do that. But all these outdoor stadiums should have grass. As many possible venues as possible should have grass. And that was a point that Harbaugh made. Harbaugh's made some good points lately, whether it's grass fields, the stuff he said on Friday about Tua Tagovailoa and what he witnessed. I mean, it was a very human reflection and reaction that meshed with what the rest of us saw Sunday and Thursday. He's been doing it for a long time. He's been doing it well. He deserves some deference, as you said. But I think he brings a humanity to coaching that a lot of guys either don't have or they don't know how to access because they're too worried about winning games. Your humanity doesn't matter if you're not winning because you're going to get fired. He's done enough. He's got enough of a track record, and he's experienced enough where he can be real and authentic and speak his mind and not worry about what it may mean for his career.
Two things about that. A, I think you're absolutely right when it comes to Harbaugh and the cachet that he's got. It's sort of like Greg Popovich in some ways. Now, obviously, Harbaugh doesn't have as many rings as Popovich. And this is the second NBA analogy that I've made this morning, which is a little bit weird. But he has the ability to say exactly what's on his mind and use those words and his platform to raise awareness or whatever it happens to be about whatever subject he wants to talk about. And I think when you have a head coach that has been there for that long, that's one of the things you can do. Mike Tomlin has that same sort of ability with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And those are two teams in the AFC North. And it's why those two teams are so competitive every year. But about the turf, and I understand that it is difficult to retrofit things and all of that. But you look at European soccer players, they will not play on turf fields. That field that they've got over there at Tottenham Stadium where they play NFL games, it is a grass field for soccer, and then they raise up whatever turf they've got under there for the NFL game. When the World Cup comes to America, they ain't playing on turf fields. They're going to have to put grass at SoFi Stadium in order to play those World Cup games. So if they can do that for this, I believe that the NFL and all of its teams should be making the investments for people to play on grass every single week. It is possible, and I think it's worth the investment because these players are worth it because they are risking their careers and their livelihoods every single week.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.